year, guys, and we are starting a new cycle in less than 2 weeks. It's actually a big day for me because November 4th.
Because it's Jay-Z's birthday?
Well, no, it's the most important person in my life's birthday. My
Jay-Z?
Jay-Z, yes. Jay-Z and Beyonce. Jordan will be 35, and we're starting a new cycle.
Can we call it the Jordan cycle?
The Jordan cycle.
That sounds weird.
Yeah, no, it's funny, though, because Chris was asking me a couple weeks ago. He's like, when does the cycle start? And I just know that date because of Jordan's birthday, so it's very helpful.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
That's right. So we're starting our winter cycle, and I think the first thing, the thing I'm most excited for every single year, this will be our 4th annual Winter's Coming Classic.
Remind people why y'all started this competition.
We were trying to find something that would, one, keep people engaged, because the holiday season, especially in the United States, is busy, right? Like we start November 4th, and then it's Thanksgiving week, and then it's Black Friday after that, which is like consumerism here in the United States, anywhere in the world now. And then right away, you're going into the kind of Christmas holiday time where people are traveling or they're with family and friends, and it's really hard to stay engaged with the training plan, especially if you have things that are going to happen after the holidays. Let's say, like, for those that will do the Open or another competition, you want to stay focused, but you got all these other things going on. So this competition is something that you can kind of lead into. We'll train really hard. We'll have fun with it. And then it gives you almost like some wiggle room to have some time off after and not feel guilty about it. And so we build in a longer deload during that holiday time so athletes can visit family and friends, and then we'll come back in January and start again.
That's the thing to look forward to at the end of the cycle, the big hurrah. But what is the regular training that people can expect?
Yeah. Do you want to hit maybe just some of the strength concepts, and I'll do big picture for the CrossFit?
Yeah. I mean, as we progress through the year, we like to transition things, and getting into this part of the season, part of the year, we start to move a little bit more into various forms of strength under fatigue. So we just finished a pretty challenging strength endurance cycle. So we did a repeat of like the clean and jerk workout from the quarterfinals.
24.4.
Yep. Now we're going to go into a little bit more of like strength lifting under fatigue, because we'll see more qualifiers with the open season coming. You've got a bunch of different styles of strength that we have to start blending into that kind of gets away from just the traditional linear strength progressions. We still have those, but you will see way more like, hey, build to a heavy snatch single. Now we're going to do some snatch repeat. And then after you cool down, build back up to like an 80% just to get some touches on what it feels like to lift again under some form of fatigue. So we'll see a little bit higher frequency of that.
It looks more like true CrossFit. Like very rarely are we just building to 1RMs, and we still do a lot of that. And I mean, we had a ton of PRs this past cycle, which is awesome. But mostly in a qualifier in the Open, you see it where you are doing a Metcon and then you have to go to 1RM. Or it's like a clean ladder, like you talked about with 24.4, where you're cycling the barbell just at heavier loads.
Yeah. And in addition to that, some of the more basic lifts, like, your deadlifts, your squats, your presses, we're going to start adding in more options and variations, because basically, and for those that are in the program that have followed Strength Bias, we've been on a really long strength build, and it's been a really consistent linear strength cycle. We're going to change it up a little bit, because by this point, we've seen a lot of people make tremendous progress in the lifts, but now it's for those that are maybe starting to hit some plateaus. We're making sure that we're starting to create some extra variations, so you can add in like some reverse banded options or options with chains. We give a lot of ideas and ways that you can kind of change some of the basic lifts that we have and add a little bit of variety to it, so that you are getting a little bit of a different strength stimulus, which is really helpful when you've been on like a year-long strength program. So that's something we're looking forward to. That's not going to be like the main part of the strength work. It'll be listed as option, because we just understand like there are a lot of people in gyms that don't have the ability or access to set up like bands from a high point above to do reverse banded work. But for those that need it, and you're going to have to change things up a little bit if you're starting to hit some plateaus in your strength work, this is an opportunity for us to guide you in that process.
And who's that for? Like, should everybody be doing the reverse banded and chain stuff?
I would only recommend it if you are starting to kind of like stall in your progress. Or maybe like you're getting over just some like overuse with squatting and high volume. This is a good chance to like take advantage of those options. If you're kind of like, if you're still hitting good numbers and like consistent progress, like 5 to 10 pound improvement per cycle, then I wouldn't use those. I would stick to the basic progressions that we have.
I will say that the cool thing about giving options though each day, one of the like limitations in group programming, and we've talked about this before, is the inability to individualize for an athlete. By giving these different options, the athlete in our program can start to individualize. So to Mike's point, maybe you're someone that's trained for 10 years and you do hit a plateau in the back squat. Now we're giving you a couple different options of, hey, maybe this linear progression won't work anymore, but try the reverse bands or try these chains or try these speed squats, these different variations that we'll give each week. And then the other thing is some people maybe are really strong in the back squat, but not great in the front squat. We're going to have an option Mondays and Fridays where you could switch those around based on what your priorities are. And the notes will be there. We have videos for all of that, but it's cool that you can individualize it based on your own needs.
Yeah, it is an opportunity to individualize it a bit more. So, we have people that ask questions all the time, like, look, like my back squat stays strong. Like, how can I alter this cycle to get more front squat work in? It's really easy and clear to do that with how we laid out the strength this cycle.
You said one of the big focuses was strength under fatigue this cycle. What do people usually come up against when they don't focus on that? Like when they're just doing regular strength progressions and they haven't, spent time on this?
Yeah, that's a good question. They're pretty exposed, and any level of fatigue can really limit someone's ability to express power. So I'll take myself for an example. Like when I'm fresh, my ability to produce power and hit high numbers and high percentages of my 1 rep max is really efficient. The second you start adding forms of fatigue in, it becomes very difficult for me to get closer to that 1 RM, to get close to that high percentage. So we're trying to improve the ability of, like, no matter the form of fatigue, you can always get up to at least close to that 1 RM as if you were fresh. And you have to train that. Like, you can't just do standalone strength work to improve that, because it's a very different feel. It's a very different stimulus. So in the normal world of strength conditioning, you work on the base first. Like, you get the basics done. You make sure that your 1 RMs are topped out. Then you start adding the complexity and the variety in, and the more sport-specific work, which is doing things under fatigue. So, we spend 3 months making sure that your snatch is getting better, your clean and jerk's getting better. Now we're going to start layering in, very similar to how Mia writes the gymnastics progressions. Like, it's making sure that you have the base foundation of mechanics, then consistency, and now intensity. Very similar with strength under fatigue. We're doing the same thing. We're making sure that all those the 1 RM numbers are topped out as high as they can go. And now we're going to start testing you with a high complexity of different forms of fatigue to make sure they're getting better.
Yeah. And I think everybody who's listening probably is on the same page here. Strength under fatigue, meaning that you're coming out of a Metcon or you've done other stuff before. So what kind of stuff will y'all have them doing before going for these strength?
Monday, you'll see some consistency in training the snatch under fatigue. So it could be like shuttle runs, double unders. So we're like pre-fatiguing your legs and your bounding so that it limits how much power you have in your pull. The next week, it could be very grip limited. You might have to do a bunch of chest to bar pull-ups where it fatigues the grip, fatigues the shoulder complex. So it makes it really hard to stabilize catching a snatch under fatigue. So those are more like muscle endurance limiters or limitations that we create that would kind of like challenge the peripherals, like your arms and legs. And then we have like more central respiratory limitations where we put you on a bike and we make you ride at a certain wattage or heart rate and then get off and then go into hitting, a high percentage of your 1 rep max, practicing what it feels like to hit a lift when you're breathing really heavy.
And what should people expect with their numbers when they start doing this strength under fatigue stuff? Are they supposed to assume like, hey, I'm not going to hit these all-time PRs and I got to kind of lower my expectations a little bit as far as the number on the board?
Well, their 1 RMs will probably stay the same. I mean, unless someone's overtraining, that's when you would see a dip. But the way that we organize the training, they're still doing some absolute strength work. So their 1 RM snatch will stay the same or even go up.
During the fatigued work.
The fatigue work, we give them percentages that they have to hit. For example, he talked about week 1. Maybe it's 10 shuttle runs, 50 double unders, and then 6 snatches at 70%. So they know exactly what they have to hit for that.
And honestly, when we use this style of training a lot, I actually see a lot of people get stronger because it's just a change in stimulus. Yeah. And CrossFitters are weird in that way.
That's how I got stronger. When I was hitting plateaus, all of a sudden I did some of that, and like my PRs, maybe 10 or 15 pounds in 6 months.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of it is that it's sub-max percentage work, so it's challenging in the moment, and there is fatigue in the moment, but the systemic fatigue throughout the week is not as high because you're not operating at that like 90% plus all throughout the week. So it allows a lot of CrossFitters too to kind of turn their mind off and focus on the simple cues of using your hips, punching into the bar. Whereas when you're doing standalone weightlifting work, a lot of athletes have a tendency to really overthink things, and that can kind of limit their ability to execute lifts.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So yeah, I'm really excited about those. I think it's fun too. And I think that just the pattern of where the sport goes, it's good to practice that stuff because you're seeing less and less now strength tested just like as a 1 RM in a standalone event.
Yeah, it seems like it's almost always strength
blended,
under fatigue or even if it is a 1RM, it's after a Metcon or in the middle of one or 2 AMRAPs where you are under fatigue. And so being good at that means you're going to be a good CrossFitter. Anything else on the strength side?
No, I think that's it. I mean, that's a lot of like
I got
Olympic
a big announcement.
lifts. Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
Because people have asked. Usually the last 2 years, we've stopped strength bias after our fall cycle. But this year, we're going to continue it on, and we're going to run that all the way through the end of the year, and we'll probably continue it. Just basically, it'll be a continuous program. We know that there are people that need to get stronger, and that's the numbers and the strength bias.
Explain the strength bias to people who don't know what that is.
Yeah, so essentially what we're doing is we're pulling out most of the conditioning work and a lot of like the hard CrossFit and putting more strength focus into that, more accessory work, maybe more gymnastic strength work for the athlete. And we see this every single year that gets into the open or does a qualifier and they crush all the CrossFit stuff. But what holds them back is their 1RM snatch, their 1RM clean, their back squat, their deadlift. And so we want a path that focuses on getting athletes stronger first. And then you can go into the regular paths, which would just be the blended strength, CrossFit skills, all that kind of stuff together.
Yeah. And I think everybody who's listening to this, who's in our program, gets it because we have the different paths. I don't know if we've mentioned it for people who might not know, but we have multiple paths. And you're saying now strength bias, which used to be only for how long?
We'd have it for 3 training cycles throughout the offseason.
Now it's continued.
Yep. Yeah, we're gonna keep running it year round. Originally, we created it because we were like, all right, it's an off season strength focus, and we feel like that amount of time is enough time, and it is to get people strong. However, we see such a large majority of people still so strength limited in so many aspects of the sport that, and we see a lot of people make good choices within it where they're like, all right, I'm doing it year round, but I want to like hop into this qualifier. And their fitness feels pretty good. You said we remove majority of the conditioning work. I'd say like 99% of it's removed. So
they have an option for the throwdowns on the weekends. And some
like,
people will put in some zone 2 work, but most of it, I mean, it is very strength focused. And for most people, that's what they need. I think the tendency with a CrossFitter, we've talked about this so many times, is, okay, I'm going to focus on my strength work, but then they need their crack, so they go and do the really hard Metcon every single day in the evenings, you know? Yep. But then they wonder why they're not getting any stronger. It's because there's this interference effect that's going on because they're overtraining, or, you know, a lot of people, maybe they go really hard in the evening and they can't sleep, so they're not recovering, and they go in the next day and then they can't hit their numbers on the strength work, which obviously limits their ability to get stronger.
It's greed, right? Everybody wants it all at the same time.
It's just so hard.
I promise if you just trust the process with that, and I know that sounds like such a such a thrown around term now or phrase now, but give it time to feel and witness the progress, and then you won't feel as pulled to feel like I have to do that conditioning work now, because I'm seeing you know, the results that come from being okay with focusing on this singular item of getting better, and then over time it is going to improve you and make you more rounded as an athlete.
Well, at the heart of the issue, it's like people will watch Travis or the big dogs go, and they're doing all of it at once, but it's like your strength numbers aren't where they need to be yet, and that's kind of why you're doing it.
That's exactly right. And by the way, even for them, like if Travis needed to get stronger at something, he'll pull out some of the conditioning work. Now, to your point, Chris, he's already hitting all the numbers that he needs, but if he did do a snatch cycle or something, he'd pull back on some of that conditioning to focus on his snatch.
I'd say, a better example is go pay attention to Lydia. You know, like Lydia Fish pulls out, her parent pulls out a large majority of her conditioning work throughout most of the year. You know, so I think Travis is the opposite example, where it's like he just had such a base level of strength that was so high already, you know, that he could do all that concurrent training all the time.
Cool.
All right. So shifting over to the CrossFit side, as always, you got 5 training days. So we have 5 different progressions. This cycle, we're going to add in a couple more options, and it's going to be this kind of A week, B week style. And what I mean by that is, so the first week of the program, you're going to have specific progressions that you follow. And then the second week, similar themes, but the progressions will look different. That's kind of what we're talking about with changing the movement, but the theme stays the same. So a perfect example of this would be our Tuesday sessions. We'll have on week 1, rowing and burpee box jump overs. And then on week 2, it'll be rowing and wall balls. And the reason we're doing those 2 combos is because last year in quarterfinals, you had the wall ball and burpee box jump over workout that like murdered everyone, the 3 rounds of 50 and 50. And burpees are tested almost in every stage of the sport. Usually it's like 100 reps in the open, and then the 70 to 75 reps in quarterfinals. Last year was 150. And then even at the semifinal and games level, there's an average of 30 to 50 reps of some kind of burpee variation that's tested. Maybe you don't do the open, but you're going to do a qualifier. We see it every single year in qualifiers. There are 50 to 100 burpees, rowing, wall balls. Those are commonly tested things. So each of the training days will have an A week and a B week. So on Mondays,
sorry, just to add a point to that, we're never going to neglect the simple fitness. No, and those are the movements that are high turnover, very low complexity to make sure that that engine's always developed.
That's right. Yeah. So the A week, B week, Mondays, you're going to see power intervals on your A weeks, which is going to be, we want to, just like with the strength endurance work, help create the ability to almost recharge your battery quickly. If you think about it, you're going to push yourself for a minute and 15 seconds. You have to recover quickly and then do another sprint. And we're going to keep doing those power repeats on all of the odd weeks. So week 1, week 3, week 5, week 7 of the training cycle. And then the even weeks, so the B weeks, you're going to do longer AMRAPs. So you can see we're kind of balancing the training with some power work on one week and then longer AMRAPs. And some of those AMRAPs are gross this cycle. There's one that's like 4 8-minute AMRAPs. So it's going to be 32 total minutes of work. And then Wednesdays, it's going to be balanced between grip endurance work that's barbell focused on one week and then grip endurance work that's dumbbell focused on the next week. And they'll just keep alternating, again, giving you options and exposure to all these different styles that will come out in a qualifier in the open.
Why is that important, the grip endurance?
Well, I think for me, I'm just so bad at grip stuff that I want to bias that in everyone's training. But this is a perfect example. The Fittest of the Coast workout that just came out for a lot of people, the deadlift and toe to bar, either was a core limitation or a grip limitation before it was a cardiovascular limitation.
Yeah, and it's such a bias in the sport.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, that was it. Yeah.
I was just going to say most workouts, people fail at the local level first and not at the global level, meaning it's not just breathing or their heart rate. It's usually my legs are burning really bad, my back blew up, my grip blew up. So we want to focus on the muscular endurance stuff as well. And if you look at the week as a whole, we're balancing it out where you have the global work with the wall ball and row, wall ball or row and burpees. Yep. And then we also have the local work that we do on a Wednesday with the grip endurance. And then Fridays will be gymnastics focus. Everyone knows that ring muscle ups and bar muscle ups and handstand push-ups and chest to bars are always in every qualifier. So there'll be a lot of bias on Fridays for that. And again, it'll alternate between rings one week and then bar the next week and then chest to bars and handstand push-ups.
And that'll look more like a density focus. And what we mean by that is the larger sets where you have to kind of figure out how do you operate and get through like a large set of ring muscle ups, which is different than doing it in a 15-minute AMRAP where it's like sets of 5.
Yeah.
Very different feel.
Yeah. So like to your point, example would be 15-minute AMRAP, 3 ring muscle ups, 6 power clean and jerks back and forth, where you could do maybe sets of 3 for someone that's decent. But what if it was 30 power clean and jerks, 30 ring muscle ups? Yes. Now it looks completely different. And you got to be able to handle that one movement and do really well recovering between sets. And then Saturdays will always be our throwdown day, which is kind of like the chaos, the fun stuff. That's a great way that everyone in all the divisions can get on the same leaderboard. You can see where you're at compared to maybe the elite athlete or the beginner athlete. And that's probably one of my most fun days.
They are. Yeah, they're super fun races, competitions. It's always fun having that leaderboard. And like all of my individual clients look forward to doing them every week. We actually start riding them in affiliates now on Friday, which has been really fun. Going back to some of the different styles of CrossFit progressions you're talking about, a point that I want to bring up that I just thought was interesting to share with people listening was the sport. People are getting so good in the sport now that like what used to be a sprint, like a 3 to 5 minute time domain, is now extended like 7 to 10 minutes. Like people are able to go out as hot as they can and just hold on.
Maintain it,
for 7 to 10 minutes, which is why doing that sprint power work is so important to develop that top end speed. Because before you would think about, I need to get better at Metcons. I'm just going to do more Metcons. I'm going to operate at that kind of paced speed that's easy to sustain for a long amount of time, and you lose that top end speed because you're seeing to get to that next level, to be a more fit athlete and to be more competitive, you have to have really high end speed on those movements because people are just getting really good at simple stuff.
Yeah, it's almost like they're sprinting the entire time. Yeah. Like even a 15-minute AMRAP, people just move the entire.
Going back to Fittest of the Coast, watching people do that 14-minute AMRAP, like Matt and Lisa were sprinting their movements on that. And
it's crazy.
I know they're elite and not everyone can maintain that, but like amongst their field, their scores were pretty good. They weren't like winning it, but like that's like everyone they're competing against. That comes down to like what's their speed of contraction at that point. So point being is like it's important to train speed over just pacing all the time, and like that's why we have that variation in these types of CrossFit progressions. Yeah.
I feel like this is like a sneaky time of the year where if you can lock in at this time of the year where some people are falling off, you kind of see that later down the road.
Man, it is.
Am I right in that?
Yeah, that's so true. We kind of alluded to this earlier. We're talking about like the holiday season. I know it is for me because we get, especially now with kids, it's like Thanksgiving comes and, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a couple of days off, and that becomes a week, and maybe I don't train the same way that I normally would. And then Christmas is here, New Year's.
Cancel your holidays and get a leg up on everyone.
Yeah. But I mean, if you don't have a plan, my point, if you don't have a plan, it's really easy to just kind of like maybe randomly throw a workout together, but not make progress. So our goal here is to give you fun training that has a plan. There's still linear progressions. We're going to push you in the CrossFit and the strength work, and then we'll finish it all off with a fun competition that's something to look forward to. And then it gives you permission to take some time off after that competition during the holidays. All right. I think that's it. Chris, you got any home run questions?
Home run questions. When does this cycle end?
January 5th. So it'll go November 4th through January 5th. And then the 6th of January is that first Monday. We'll start our New Year cycle.
Yep.
Can you tell me one of the winners coming workouts?
Absolutely not. In 2 weeks, we will.
Please?
2 weeks, we will.
You're going to breathe heavy. You're going to lift heavy.
There's so much.
You're going to breathe and
it's
lift
going to be
heavy.
awesome. I'm actually really excited.
Yeah.
Do you want to have a competition?
I always do them.
All right. Well, I guess that's it. You could sign up now, and if you join at our 6-month or 1 year rate option, you get a free shirt.
Yeah, buddy.
So go get that, and have fun this cycle.
All right, let's get it.
See you guys.